Most people believe life gets easier when income increases, but real relief starts when financial fear finally loosens its grip. There is a quiet moment when checking your bank account no longer tightens your chest or triggers immediate panic. That moment does not come from luxury, status, or feeling richer than people scrolling beside you online. It comes from reaching a financial buffer where problems feel solvable instead of threatening your basic stability. For many Americans, that invisible turning point surprisingly appears around $20,000 in accessible savings. Not because 20,000 makes you wealthy, but because it fundamentally changes how your nervous system processes uncertainty. Before going further, if calm and honest money conversations help you feel grounded, gently tap like to support this channel. If you know someone quietly stressed about money, sharing this video can be a small act of kindness toward them. Subscribing helps more people find realistic financial discussions without hype, shame, or pressure to get rich fast. My name is Max, and I spend my time studying how ordinary people emotionally experience money at different stages. I am not here to sell shortcuts or promise wealth, but to explain why certain financial thresholds change everything. When savings are low, every expense feels dangerous because one surprise can collapse your entire monthly plan. Your brain stays stuck in survival mode, constantly scanning for bills, repairs, emergencies, or bad news. This survival state quietly pushes people toward debt, rushed decisions, and emotional spending patterns. Once savings reach a stable buffer, the brain slowly exits survival mode and re-enters long-term thinking. Suddenly, a car repair feels inconvenient, not catastrophic, because the money already exists somewhere quietly waiting. Medical bills, job transitions, or moving costs stop feeling like cliffs and start feeling like manageable hills. Life feels easier because fear is no longer invited into every financial decision you make. You gain something rare in modern life: the ability to pause before reacting emotionally with money. And that pause is where real financial stability and confidence quietly begin to grow. This financial pause gives you space to think clearly instead of reacting immediately to pressure, fear, or urgency. And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable because this kind of stability does not benefit every system. When people hear banks hate this, it sounds dramatic, but it is not emotional, it is structural. Banks do not dislike people personally, they simply profit more when customers stay financially dependent. The most profitable customer is not calm, prepared, or confident, but slightly stressed and always borrowing. When savings are low, credit cards become survival tools instead of convenience tools. Interest charges, minimum payments, and late fees quietly become part of everyday life for many households. But once someone holds $20,000 in reserve, that dependence starts to fade. Credit cards are paid off faster, balances stay lower, and borrowing becomes optional, not necessary. From a bank's perspective, that customer suddenly generates less long-term profit. Money sitting safely in your account creates peace for you, but little excitement for financial institutions. Banks earn far more from lending money than from holding your cash responsibly. This is why marketing constantly encourages spending, upgrading lifestyles, and using credit comfortably. Financial calm makes you question purchases instead of reacting emotionally to limited-time offers. You start asking whether something is needed instead of whether you can afford monthly payments. That question alone disrupts systems built around impulse, urgency, and convenience-based debt. Having savings gives you leverage because urgency no longer controls your decisions. You can say no to overtime, bad contracts, or toxic jobs without immediate financial panic. This flexibility is powerful, and it quietly shifts control back into your hands. And systems built on dependence naturally resist anything that reduces that control. This resistance is subtle, showing up as encouragement to spend now and worry about consequences later. Advertisements rarely celebrate financial calm, they celebrate upgrades, urgency, and rewards tied to spending. When people lack savings, financial decisions are driven by immediate relief rather than long-term outcomes. Emergency expenses force people into credit because waiting is not an option without a safety buffer. This cycle keeps money flowing outward while stress quietly flows inward. Once savings exist, the cycle begins to weaken and choices slow down. Slower decisions often lead to better outcomes, fewer regrets, and lower long-term costs. Financial systems are optimized for speed, not patience, which is why calm customers feel disruptive. When you are calm, you read terms, compare options, and walk away more often. Walking away is dangerous for businesses relying on impulse, urgency, and emotional triggers. $20,000 is not magical, but it creates distance between you and desperation. That distance protects you from making decisions rooted in fear or short-term survival thinking. People underestimate how expensive desperation becomes over years of rushed financial choices. High interest, penalties, and bad contracts slowly compound against those without financial buffers. Savings interrupt this compounding by reducing exposure to expensive mistakes. Over time, fewer mistakes create stability that feels almost invisible but deeply powerful. This is why life feels easier, not because problems disappear, but because reactions improve. You respond instead of react, which changes outcomes in ways most people never track. The relief people feel is psychological before it is mathematical or financial. And psychology is the foundation of every money decision we make. This psychological shift explains why people with modest savings often outperform higher earners living paycheck to paycheck financially. Income impresses socially, but savings quietly determine how much control you actually have over your daily life choices. Many Americans earn good salaries yet feel trapped because every dollar already has an obligation attached to it. Without savings, money arrives and leaves immediately, never creating breathing room or emotional security for decisions later on. That constant pressure explains why budgeting alone rarely fixes stress when there is no financial buffer available nearby. Once savings reach a certain level, budgeting finally works because fear stops hijacking priorities during everyday decisions constantly. This is why $20,000 feels powerful, even though it would not impress anyone online financially speaking. Social media highlights extremes, but real life improves through quiet stability most people never post about publicly online. Having savings does not change who you are, it changes how the world treats you during stressful moments. You negotiate differently, choose differently, and walk away from bad deals with less fear than before ever did. This ability to walk away is what truly separates financial stability from constant vulnerability in adult life situations. Banks prefer predictable borrowers who rely on monthly payments, not customers who can opt out whenever necessary financially. When you opt out, profits shrink, marketing loses power, and urgency tactics stop working as effectively anymore overall. This does not make banks evil. It simply reveals incentives built into modern financial systems over decades globally. Understanding incentives helps you stop taking financial pressure personally or blaming yourself unnecessarily for structural outcomes beyond control. The goal is not to fight banks, but to design a life requiring less dependence on borrowed money. Savings create that independence quietly without announcements, permission, or dramatic lifestyle changes that attract attention online or envy. This quiet progress is why many financially stable people seem boring, but sleep better at night consistently now. They are not chasing excitement. They are protecting peace built slowly over time through intentional choices and patience. This is the emotional payoff behind $20,000 that spreadsheets rarely explain clearly to everyday people properly. Many people assume financial ease comes from luxury, but it actually comes from reducing vulnerability to unexpected problems. Vulnerability is expensive because it forces fast decisions when patience would normally create better outcomes financially. Without savings, time becomes an enemy, pushing people toward costly shortcuts just to regain temporary stability quickly. Savings reverse that relationship, turning time into an ally instead of a constant source of pressure. When time is on your side, you can wait for better options instead of accepting the first available solution. This applies to jobs, housing, investments, and even everyday purchases people rarely think twice about. People with savings buy fewer things, but they buy better things with less regret afterward. They are not smarter, they are simply less rushed when making financial decisions under stress. Rushed decisions often feel justified emotionally, but they usually carry long-term costs hidden at first. High interest rates, unfavorable terms, and missed opportunities quietly accumulate from those rushed moments. Savings act as a buffer against urgency, which is one of the most expensive forces in modern finance. Urgency is profitable for lenders, retailers, and advertisers who benefit from quick emotional decisions. Calm consumers disrupt this model by delaying purchases and questioning whether urgency is truly necessary. That hesitation alone can save thousands of dollars over a lifetime without increasing income at all. This is why financial calm often outperforms financial sophistication for most ordinary people. You do not need advanced strategies to benefit from patience, you need room to breathe. $20,000 creates that breathing room more reliably than complex plans most people abandon. Complexity often fails because stress overwhelms systems that require perfect discipline every single month. Simple buffers survive stress better than complicated strategies during unpredictable real-life events. This is the quiet advantage most people never learn about until much later than necessary. Unfortunately, many people only discover this advantage after years of stress, debt, and unnecessary financial exhaustion. They spend their 20s and 30s chasing income while ignoring the importance of stability and emotional safety. Society praises hustle and earnings, but rarely teaches the value of financial buffers and patience. As a result, people blame themselves for feeling behind, even when the system rewards constant dependence. Savings quietly break this pattern by reducing how often you must participate in unfavorable financial games. When you need less, you are pressured less, marketed to less, and manipulated far less often overall. This reduction in pressure explains why emotionally, life feels lighter after reaching that savings threshold. You are still working, still budgeting, but the background noise of fear finally fades. That silence is unfamiliar at first, especially for people accustomed to constant financial tension. Some even feel guilty for feeling calm, as if stability must always be temporary or undeserved. This reaction is common and comes from years of conditioning around scarcity and financial insecurity. When money has always been tight, peace can feel suspicious instead of comforting initially. But stability is not luck. It is the result of systems slowly working in your favor. Understanding this helps people protect their buffer instead of sabotaging it unconsciously. Many drain savings quickly because calm feels uncomfortable after living in stress for so long. Recognizing that urge is critical to maintaining long-term financial stability and confidence. Savings are not meant to impress. They are meant to protect your nervous system. Once protection exists, decisions improve naturally without constant effort or strict self-control. This is why saving feels boring but changes life outcomes more than exciting financial moves. The boredom is the signal that the system is finally working properly. Once you understand this, you stop chasing excitement and start quietly protecting the conditions that keep life manageable. This protection matters more than returns, because stress destroys progress faster than low interest ever will. Many people underestimate how much stress quietly sabotages financial plans that look perfect on paper. Under pressure, humans revert to short-term thinking even when they intellectually understand better options. Savings reduce that pressure, allowing logic to stay present when emotions would normally take control. This is why financial education fails without financial safety supporting the lessons being taught. Knowledge without stability often increases frustration instead of creating meaningful progress. When people finally feel safe, advice starts working because the nervous system is no longer overwhelmed. That safety does not require luxury. It requires consistency and protection from sudden financial shocks. $20,000 often represents that minimum protection for many American households today. It covers multiple months of expenses, giving time to respond instead of react during disruptions. Time is the real asset created by savings, not the number displayed on a bank statement. With time, people can search for better jobs instead of accepting the first offer out of fear. They can negotiate calmly, knowing survival does not depend on immediate approval. This calm negotiation shifts power dynamics in subtle but meaningful ways most people never notice. Employers sense when desperation is absent, changing how conversations unfold during critical moments. The same dynamic applies to landlords, lenders, and even everyday service providers. Stability changes how others treat you, long before income or titles ever do. This external change reinforces internal confidence, creating a feedback loop of better decisions. That loop is fragile early on, which is why protecting savings matters more than growing them fast. Growing savings too aggressively can backfire if it creates anxiety or forces unhealthy sacrifice patterns. The goal is not to hoard money, but to build enough margin to live with dignity and clarity. Once that margin exists, growth becomes easier because fear no longer interferes with consistency. Many people sabotage this stage by comparing themselves to others who appear wealthier online. Comparison reintroduces urgency, which slowly erodes the calm savings we're meant to create. Financial peace requires resisting the urge to prove progress through visible consumption. Quiet stability rarely earns applause, but it delivers outcomes that flashy lifestyles often cannot sustain. This is why banks prefer visible activity over quiet reserves, sitting untouched for long periods. Active borrowing creates predictable revenue streams, while idle savings reduce opportunities for profit extraction. From an institutional perspective, calm customers are inefficient and difficult to monetize effectively. That does not mean you are doing something wrong, it means you are stepping outside expected behavior. Systems reward predictable stress responses, not people who slow down and question financial narratives. Understanding this removes shame and replaces it with awareness and intentional choice. You stop asking why saving feels unrewarded and start valuing the freedom it quietly creates. Freedom shows up as fewer rushed decisions and more confidence during uncertain moments. Over time, those moments compound into a life that feels steadier and less reactive overall. This steadiness is what most people actually want, even when they say they want more money. Money is just the tool, but calm is the outcome people are truly chasing unconsciously. $20,000 often marks the first time calm becomes reliably accessible for many adults. And once accessed, protecting that calm becomes the most important financial decision moving forward. Protecting calm means avoiding decisions that trade short-term excitement for long-term instability and recurring financial stress. This includes resisting lifestyle inflation that quietly increases fixed costs and reduces flexibility during uncertain periods. Fixed costs are dangerous because they turn small disruptions into serious problems when income temporarily changes. Savings soften disruptions, but only if spending habits remain aligned with the life you are trying to protect. Many people rebuild stress accidentally by upgrading life faster than their financial buffer can support sustainably. True progress feels slower because it prioritizes durability over appearance and long-term comfort over validation. This mindset shift is uncomfortable in a culture that constantly celebrates visible success and rapid growth. Yet durable stability quietly outperforms fragile success when life inevitably introduces unexpected challenges. Job losses, health issues, family needs, and market changes test systems built without adequate margin. Savings provide margin, allowing you to absorb shocks without panic or destructive financial reactions. This margin is what separates temporary setbacks from long-term financial derailment for most households. People with margin recover faster because they are not making decisions under extreme emotional pressure. Recovery speed matters more than perfection because no financial path is free from disruption. Understanding this reframes mistakes as manageable events instead of permanent failures. That perspective reduces shame and encourages learning instead of avoidance or denial. Calm people stay engaged with their finances because interaction no longer feels threatening or overwhelming. Engagement leads to better tracking, better adjustments, and fewer surprises over time. These small improvements compound quietly, creating stability that feels earned rather than accidental. This is why financial progress often looks boring from the outside, but feels liberating internally. And that internal freedom is what makes life genuinely easier, regardless of income level. Many people chase higher income hoping it will create ease, but without stability, income alone rarely delivers peace. Ease comes from knowing you can handle problems without immediately sacrificing sleep, dignity, or long-term plans. $20,000 does not remove challenges, but it removes panic from the equation. When panic disappears, your decisions become calmer, clearer, and far more aligned with your real values. This alignment is what makes life feel easier, even when circumstances are not perfect. Banks may not celebrate this moment because calm customers borrow less and question more. But your life improves when you stop being optimized for someone else's profit model. Financial systems are not designed for your peace, so building it requires quiet, intentional choices. Those choices often look unimpressive, but they compound into something deeply meaningful over time. If this perspective feels new, that is okay. Most people were never taught to value calm. Understanding money is less about numbers and more about reducing fear and increasing flexibility. That flexibility allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally when life shifts unexpectedly. If this video helped you see money differently, consider sharing it with someone who needs reassurance. Sometimes sharing understanding is more helpful than giving advice or telling someone to try harder. If you appreciate grounded conversations about money without hype, subscribing helps this channel grow responsibly. Here, the goal is not getting rich quickly, but living with less fear and more clarity. Everyone's number may differ, but the principle of stability before growth applies universally. Comment below what financial milestone first made you feel calmer, even if it seemed small. Your experience may help someone else realize they are closer to peace than they think. Thank you for spending this time here, and I will see you in the next honest conversation.